myrtle and the olive tree. I will place the juniper in the desert, together with the box tree and the cypress, that they may see and recognize and consider and gain insight as well, that the hand of the Lord has done this, and the Holy One of Israel has created it. Trees are a wonder. Next to the mention of people and God, scholars have found that trees feature more heavily in the Bible than any other subject. I can think of very important biblical stories about fig trees, apple, olive, almond, cedar, and cypress trees. There are stories about date palms and henna, pistachio, poplar, and pomegranate, to name a few. The tree of knowledge is used to form the basis of our creation stories in the book of Genesis. The trees of Jerusalem and the rivers that flow around them were the point of departure for the 12 tribes of Israel. Noah's ark, the stable, the cradle, the cross, were all made from particular trees. To honor the evergreen presence of Christ in our lives, we place a Christmas tree in our living room each year. Trees are an important part of how we live and how we recognize life around us. In fact, there would be no life without trees. But what can they teach us about God? And what can God teach us about ourselves through trees? Ask a person to consider a special tree from their childhood, and there is not one among us who can't recall a walnut or a redwood, a eucalyptus or an oak that served as a fort or a meeting place, a refuge, swing, shade, or a place for target practice. Perhaps it was the place we carved the initials of our first love, or buried the remains of our beloved cat. Like God, trees are constant. They're everywhere. Day and night, night and day, they are resilient. They are interdependent, regenerative, a source of comfort and strength. They warm us, they inspire us, they help us to return to ourselves. Genesis 1, verse 12, the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in them after their kind. And God saw that it was good. Our God is a generous God, a greening God. Trees are beautiful reminders of God's presence around us. How might we learn more about who God means for us to be through trees? Follow me through this little tree-free association. Ezekiel 17, verse 5 through 6. God also took some of the seed of the land and planted it in fertile soil, placed it beside abundant waters, and set it like a willow. Then it sprouted and became a low spreading vine with its branches turned toward God. But its roots remained under it. So it became a vine and yielded shoots and sent out branches. In Isaiah 44, God envisions that we will spring up among the grass like poplars by the stream of water. We are to be, says Psalm 52, verse 8, like a green olive tree in the house of God, trusting in the loving kindness of God forever and ever. Micah 4, verse 4, imagines that God's vision for God's people is that we will sit under God's vines. We will rest under God's fig tree. And out of the peace that comes from within, we will make no one afraid. From the mouth of the Lord, these words were spoken. On this Labor Day weekend, a time when many of us would be getting in one last road trip or a camping adventure, I invite you to spend some time considering the trees. There was great rejoicing recently when firefighters were able to save the great mother tree in Big Basin. When was the last time you hiked to the grandmother tree right here in Jack London Park? If that's too far a piece for you, consider finding a tree closer in and make a date to spend some time there. Have a picnic. Watch the leaves as they begin to march toward fall. Feel God's presence there with you, here with us, in the bark, in the roots, in the branches reaching high up toward the light. You may have a favorite tree poem. I have several, but this is the one I like the best. It's called The Sycamore by Wendell Berry.
In the place that is my own place, whose earth I am shaped in and must bear, there is an old tree growing, a great sycamore that is a wondrous healer of itself. Fences have been tied to it, nails driven into it, hacks and whittles cut into it. The lightning has burned it. There is no year it has flourished in that has not harmed it. There is a hollow in it that is its death, though its living brims whitely at the lip of the darkness and flows outward. Over all its scars has come the seamless white of the bark. It bears the gnarls of its history healed over. It has risen to a strange perfection in the warp and bending of its long growth. It has gathered all accidents into its purpose. It has become the intention and radiance of its dark fate. It is a fact, sublime, mystical, and unassailable. In all the country, there is no other like it. I recognize it in a principle, an indwelling, the same as itself and greater, that I would be ruled by. I see that it stands in its place and feeds upon it, and is fed upon, and is native and maker.
And finally, these words from Proverbs. Let them serve as our guide as we move into another week of unrest, remembering that 100 years to us are but a blink in the mind's eye of a tree. Proverbs 11, verse 30. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who is wise